So our first speaker is Ralph Dell. He is the software systems engineer at Catawba County. And he's going to talk about how to make a map with vector tiles and Mapbox GL. After some fertile attempts at higher education, Ralph, an avid runner, finally got a BS in computer science in the mid-'80s. And in '96, Ralph, as a Unix administrator, first encountered GIS. Since then, nobody has been able to stop him. During his marathon GIS career, he has worn various hats. More recently, his favorite hat, a web developer. The one that looks good on him. Let's welcome Ralph Dell to show us how to make a map with vector tiles and Mapbox GL.
Thank you, Lek. So one of the hats I wear at Catawba County is a web developer. Since I walked out of this conference in 2009, I've been using open source web development tools. What I'm going to do after first couple introductory slides is we're going to look at some tools that Mapbox provides to construct maps and consume vector tiles. Then we're going to run through 4 or 5 simple examples I made using those tools. We're going to look at the map. I'm going to talk about the map. In some cases, we're going to look at some snippets of code behind the map. Some of you may or may not be interested in that code, so just bear with me through that part of the presentation. My hope is to be more inspirational than technical, and that maybe some of you might go home and give some of these tools a try. I'm going to be focusing more on the styling of the maps rather than the tools for user interactions. If any of you are inclined to try to write down a little bit of code or some URLs, don't do it. I would rather have you sit there and listen to the flow of what's going on. My very last slide has a link to this PowerPoint and my email address. So I've sat in presentations before and I've been a few minutes in and I thought, I don't know what they're talking about. This slide is hopefully to avoid that. Mapbox is a company that provides tools for anyone to create and publish maps. That history link gives a nice overview of the company. With Mapbox, you can set up a free account. You can have 50,000 map views a month and up to 5 gigabytes of tile sets of storage for your vector tiles. So you can do a lot with a free Mapbox account. Mapbox GL is the JavaScript library that they've developed. It requires a modern browser. What are vector tiles? Okay, vector tiles, as the name suggests, contain vector data rather than a rendered image. Vector tiles are styled on the client rather than being styled on the server. Well, the first time I read that, I thought, isn't that nice? Do I really care? Well, it turns out that yes, I do care, but I didn't know that on the front end. Also, vector tiles are smaller than a corresponding rendered image you might get from another type server. There again, I thought, how nice. Do I care? Well, it does turn out that I do care, but I didn't know that on the front end either. I believe Tobin is going to show us some slides that will show how dramatic that size difference can be. What's JSON and GeoJSON? This is the first part of the and other stuff. JSON is a name value format enclosed in braces. You can construct either rather simple or highly complex data structures with JSON and consume them. GeoJSON is just a specialized form of JSON, contains geographic data. Later on, we're going to be looking at some JSON, and some of the examples I'm using are going to be consuming GeoJSON. Openstreetmap. What the heck is Openstreetmap? This is the second part of the and other stuff. So the examples are built on Openstreetmap data. Openstreetmap is a free and editable map of the whole world that's built and maintained by volunteers. So how'd I even get here in the first place? I don't remember reading an article that said, Here's the top 3 reasons you should be using vector tiles. And I don't remember sitting in a presentation where someone said vector tiles are cool and you should use them, as I could be accused of doing right now. I was not satisfied with how my base maps looked. That's how I got started. So I have a lot of maps. I used open layers on the client and GeoServer on the back end. Well, GeoServer for those maps used an XML-based styling. It was okay, nothing special. Some of my simpler maps, I would use Leaflet on the client, and I might bring in Google or Bing as a base map. They had some nicer styling. They also had some overhead that I really didn't like. So about a year ago, I had a little free time, and I thought I'm going to take another run at my base map problem. Didn't take long before I came across Mapbox and vector tiles. They have provided me with some tools that, well, they provided me with a nice base map, some nice styling tools, and they haven't replaced all my maps by any means, but they've replaced a number of maps. And really, when I have a new project, the first thing I'll do is I'll ask myself, can I use these tools? So we're gonna go into Mapbox. Mapbox provides styles for us, and a style is a JSON object that defines the visual appearance of the map. So you can click on that new style button, and there's a number of styles they provide. We're going to choose streets, a complete base map, perfect for incorporating your own data. That's what we want to do. You click on that create button, and it takes you to their styling GUI. Now over there on the left is a bunch of the layers that you can style. We're not going to do any of that right now. I switched the focus of the map to the convention center, but what I want to do is I want to click that publish button up there in the corner. After I publish the style, there's a use option up there in the edit thing. Mapbox provides me with a URL to the style. It tells me what my access token is, which goes with my Mapbox account, and it gives me some links to the example page. So with that, I have enough information to produce my first map, and hopefully I can work this keyboard here. I want to get to my browser. This will be my technical challenge, I reckon. So here's the first map I made, and as you can see, let me get my mouse here. You can zoom in, zoom out. Features become visible. The styling changes. Really, what we have here is we're looking at vector tiles coming from the Mapbox server. So we kind of have a nice base map. So I wanted to know, so I was pretty happy with that. If I go back here, if I want to get back to this, my correct slide, sorry about this. I'll learn how to do this before it's all over. So here's the code behind the first map. You set your map box, you set your access token. That container map points to your HTML div. You can reference your styles one of 3 ways. You can reference the hosted style we just published. You can reference Mapbox styles, their hosted styles directly, or you can download that JSON and reference it that way. I set the center of the map, I set the zoom level of the map, and I added that map control. A word about zoom levels. Zoom level 0 covers the whole world. You can go into about zoom level 20 to cover just a small portion of the world. So I wanted to know more about how that styling worked. So I went back to their styling GUI, and I said, if you click on some of those layers over there, it's going to show you all the details of what's going on behind the styling. I did that. I didn't understand what I was looking at. It didn't help me. It might help you, it didn't help me. So I thought, what I'm going to do, I'm going to download that style and look at the JSON. So I did that. So 11,000 lines of JSON. Now, I guess I can be a little nerdy, but I'm not nerdy enough to look at 11,000 lines of JSON. But fortunately, all those layers in there, they're just the same three types that we're all familiar with. They're either a symbol, a fill, or a line. So I was able to look at a little bit of that JSON and figure out how to style a little bit. So I did that so I could figure out a little bit of styling. So what I had here, I had a nice base map. I had a little bit of knowledge about styling. I wanted to put some of my own data on the map. I happened to have a shapefile of the North Carolina county boundaries laying around, so I could take Mapbox's tile set tool. I zipped up that shapefile. I uploaded it to Mapbox. They turned it into a set of vector tiles for me. So I have a name, that set of vector tiles had a name, it had a map ID over there. It tells you some information about the zoom extent. So I had enough information to take that and put it on a map. And now comes my next challenge, is getting back to the map. Anyway, escape there. Hang on. Excuse me for my, so what I did, I outlined all those county boundaries in gray. Then I wanted to focus on Catawba County, so I outlined Catawba County in red, and then I gave Catawba County a little bit of a fill color with an opacity. So, and it's the same whether you zoom in or out on this guy. So, how did I do that? Back to my PowerPoint, Lord willing. Let me scroll down here and get to where I want to get to. So there's the code. So you're always adding a source, and then you're adding layers. The source says it's a typed vector. We're trying to pull in vector tiles. That URL points back to the URL of the data that I uploaded to Mapbox. I'm adding 3 layers from that source. The first layer was just all the county lines. You can see where that layer points back to the source. And I just painted that color with that gray color and line width. I tend to use hex for my colors. You can use other color things, whatever you want to do. So then, if I click over here, okay, let's go since I'm in the, hang on. So then I wanted to outline Catawba County in red. So same thing, it's a type line. I can filter on my attribute name for Catawba County. I painted that red. Then similar for the fill. For that fill, the type is fill rather than line because I'm rendering a polygon. I filter it, I gave it a fill color, I gave it an opacity. So the next thing I wanted to do, I wanted to add some point data to the map, and I really wanted to add my Catawba County parks. So I pulled them in with some GeoJSON. I could have pulled them in with some vector tiles if I wanted to. But you're not seeing any park data, but then as you kind of zoom in, I gave them all green points, get a little, you can see how the rendering of those points changes. And if you'll notice, kind of what's happening is those points were not there, and then they got bigger, and then they got smaller. Well, I saw that happen, and I thought, that is really cool, because I've styled other ways, and it wasn't that easy. So this is how I did that. The type is GeoJSON. I just pulled some GeoJSON into my parks GeoJSON into my map. I can use that type circle because I'm just symbolizing a simple circle. I give my circle a color. I could give my circle a fixed radius. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get that transition. So I was able to do that with this base and stops. And what the stops are doing, it says up to zoom level 7, your radius is 0. You go up to zoom level 12, that radius increases to 12. Then you go to zoom level 17, it goes back down to a radius of 0. That base just kind of affects the size of those points during that retransition. I thought, wow, that was really cool. I really did. I was kind of excited about that. So I did a similar thing with the opacity of the fill. Up to zoom level 10, the opacity is 0.2. After zoom level 12, it's totally opaque. So the next thing I wanted to do, I wanted to label those points. And so here's my same park data. And I'm going to kind of zoom in, and there's no labels. There's no labels. Labels are starting to show up. There, the labels are showing up. And then at some point, the labels disappear. Well, it's a similar type circumstance. And here's my code for the labels. Now, there's a lot of code there that's going to be similar to any kind of labeling you do. You're going to do some of the same stuff. You're going to set a font. You're going to set a label offset. You're going to set a halo. What I'm doing here, though, is the stops say up to zoom 11, no label. Go up to zoom 14, increase that font to 14, and then I use that maximum zoom up there at the top, and I turned off the labels at zoom 17. Then, okay, it was nice. I was happy. I had all my points were the same color. But I had some school data. I wanted to display my schools, and I wanted to symbolize my elementary school, my middle school, and my high school's different colors. And I knew enough up to that point, I could have developed 3 layers to do it. But that's like a lousy way to do it. No developer would want to do that. But Mapbox provides me with some tools that are called the data-driven styling. Here, let me zoom in a little bit on Maiden, because they have the 3 kinds of schools there. So my high school, my middle school, my elementary school are all different colors. How did I do that? I'm surprised you asked, Ralph. So here it is. I'm using GeoJSON data. I could be using vector tiles. And this whole thing, this paint, circle color, and my circle color, I set up that type categorical. That means it's going to give me this data-driven ability. That property S-type is a column of my attribute data that's going to contain elementary, middle, or high. I give those stops. I give elementary, middle, and high, each a different color. So really, in this case, my stops aren't based on a zoom level, but my stops are based on an attribute of the data. The next thing I want to do, that's the last bit of code we're going to look at, but it's really easy to do 3D modeling, to do a 3D thing with these tools. I went back to first map, I focused on this Wells Fargo building because it's a nice tall building. I totally ripped this example off of Mapbox, so I'm not going to show you the code, but it's in their examples code. But I thought, how in the world did they do that? And how they did it was, if you look at the data in Openstreetmap, there's levels there that goes with Wells Fargo building. So Mapbox takes that levels and they manipulate it, and with some pretty simple code, you can do some 3D modeling. Lack, how am I doing on time? I'm doing okay. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to my very first map. And I alluded to, I would use, sometimes I'd bring in Google or Bing as a base map. And they were okay, but sometimes they'd have stuff on them I didn't want to show. And the same Openstreetmap has stuff on it I don't want to show. Those restaurants could be those points of interest you might have in Google or Bing or restaurants you might have here in OpenStreetMap. They might be a distraction to what you're trying to do on your map. I don't like it. So what I did was no points of interest, and this is kind of a lack of what I did. All I did was I had to edit that style. I got rid of those points. So I had more control using these tools than I would some of those other tools. So it didn't come up the right way, but it's okay. So hang on, let me see if I can animate this. It doesn't matter. That's supposed to be animated, it doesn't matter. That first little slide there, I'm pretty happy. I like these tools they provided. They're pretty easy to use. The second slide over here, if it was animated, that guy's slicing his bread and toasting it at the same time. Well, Mapbox doesn't always provide me the tools to both slice my bread and toast it. And what I mean by that is I have my parcel layers in Mapbox vector tiles, and I display those on a lot of maps. But if I have to display my parcel layers that were mapped yesterday, it's really not a good strategy. So I can't use this vector tile Mapbox thing. Or I have a map. I have 3,500 points of delinquent taxes. Now that delinquent tax data changes all the time, so I can't use a vector tile, but I can pull it in with GeoJSON, and it works pretty well. But if I wanted to try to pull in, GeoJSON has some severe limits. If I wanted to try to pull in 100,000 address points with GeoJSON, it's just going to bring its maps to its knees. So, OpenStreetMap, what's the deal here? So a year or two ago, I saw some of my colleagues using OpenStreetMap data, and I said, really? Are you sure? Is that good enough to use? And they kind of looked at me and said, oh, yeah, it's good enough to use. And I also agree. After using it, I am pretty happy with the quality of OpenStreetMap data. If there's things in it that I don't like, I edit it. So yeah, I'm very happy with OpenStreetMap data. The last thing I'd like to say is a year or so from now, Catawba County is going to have some job openings. And one of those job openings might have to do with open source web development. So if there's anybody, I don't know why that's funny, but that's good. If anybody might be interested in doing something like that, I would be glad to talk to you. Or if you think you know of anybody that might be interested in doing that, just send them my way before the conference is over. Thank you.